slow, moving slow on that Sunday stuff.
But you're in flow.
Is that what it is that we're gonna call it?
It feels like it's slow, but you're really in flow.
Oh, and you spitting. Okay. About to.
That's the best I got.
That's the best you got. Okay.
I get one rhyme a year.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And we are back for another episode of the N Podcast, the intellectual nutrition. Jerry asked the question, which one was it? And I said both. And he looked at me like, come on, guy. Like, can we have a little bit more commitment? And I don't know what to do.
Intellectually nutritious is good. I like that.
All right.
That's why I've been hashtagging intellectually nutritious. And I think that's what you have on the.
I'm pretty sure that's what I have. So here's my problem. I got too much going on. Like too many podcasts, too many projects. I have all these things bouncing around in my head, which actually leans perfectly into the theme of this episode, right?
Yeah, perhaps prioritizing, now determining what's right.
Yes. So
focusing your efforts in the right areas of your life, determining the activities to prioritize in your life so you can get ahead without allowing your responsibilities to needlessly suffer.
Whoa.
Yes.
As someone who is doing a lot,
Yeah.
This is a near and dear subject for me because it is something that I actually struggle with.
Yep.
Because, I have the DJ thing, right? Which I'm putting a certain level of effort and energy into that. And then the writing that I want to do and that, for my Medium page and like there's that. And then there's the podcast. And so I have, the N podcast, the N paradigm shifting, which is just the monologue version of this. Then there is the Don't Call Me Karen podcast, which we're getting ready to start recording that soon. Kate Kelly. And
that's
then,
your second season. Second season?
Yeah, we'll be on the second season for that. And then I have a new one coming out called the Cultured Misfits podcast, which I'm really excited about.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the links are Linktree. If you go to my Instagram at djsilk and click on the bio, you'll see the Linktree. It's linktr.ee/djsilk, and you'll see the links to everything. So yeah, I have a lot going on, and I still have to drive people around for dollars because none of this is paying anything yet. So, and I've been on this body journey with reclaiming my body for what it should be, not what it wanted to be.
Yep.
So there's a lot. I'm juggling a lot of things in life. So at times I struggle with what to do, when to do, how to do it. So. And I feel like Jerry has a lot of inside information on this. You might be helping me out. This might be about you getting me right, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, when you look at all the stuff you listed, the key would be knowing where you want to be. So, Stephen Covey wrote a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And one of the habits is to be proactive, but the one that when we want to focus on is beginning with the end in mind.
Right.
So if you're thinking about the reclaiming your body, right? Well, one of the things I heard you say is you want to dunk one more time or dunk again or something like that.
Yes, I want to get it on video. Yeah. I want to get it on video. Then I don't ever have to dunk again.
Right. So if that's the goal, if that's the end in mind, then what you do around that project, because these are different projects.
Mm-hmm.
What you do around that project should be with that goal in mind. So people working on their body, there's all different types of body goals. If you're reclaiming your body, it's all we can say, well, I want this to look a certain way, this to look a certain way, and then you would focus on what you need to do, what exercises, what nutritional habits you need to have to get that. So if your end goal is to dunk, then there's certain parts of the body you'd want to work on consistently.
Yes, actually. So so I'm 5'11" and 3/4.
Okay.
Right. I was, let's see, I remember in 8th grade, I could touch the backboard, jump and touch the backboard. And then that summer, I spent the summer jumping over milk crates. My dad got me a weight jacket. I wore the weight vest. That ninth grade year, I could, and I didn't grow that much, so it wasn't like I had this major growth spurt. It was all strength related. But then by my ninth grade, I could dunk. I could drop, step, dunk, two hands without stretching. Like it was could jump out the gym. So so part of it was the training, but the other part was because my ass was like 160 pounds. Like there was not a lot of gravity to overcome. So part of this mission for me to be able to dunk one more time is that I have to lighten up as well as get stronger.
Right.
You know, that's so it's actually a whole body thing. Like, I mean, I could get my legs really strong, but I actually have to get as light as I possibly can. So
but what I'm saying is that there's a specific outcome
tied. Man, I was just giving people. I was just
I'm just saying. But listen what I'm saying. There's a specific outcome for working out, because everyone, in terms of their body, can work out differently depending on what their outcome is. So
True.
For your outcome, part of it has to be to reduce your weight, right?
Right. Yes.
And to also strengthen your legs to get the vertical that you need, right?
Yes.
It's not about you doing the same workout as someone who wants to be in a bodybuilding competition. You follow what I'm saying?
Good point. Point. Hold on, let me clap it up for you. Making these points, setting me up. Go ahead.
You know what I mean? So you even though you say it's your whole body, yeah, it's your whole body, but the outcome is specific, and because the outcome is specific, now you know how to prioritize your workout.
Did you guys get that point? Did you see what he did there? So fly.
So
appreciate it.
When you look at the book, The 7 Habits, Covey talks about beginning with the end in mind. And then the next habit, he says, put first things first. So if you're planning a trip, and a lot of people spend time in their lives planning their vacations. You know, if you think about our society, we spend more time planning vacations than we do our careers.
This is true. Yeah, because it's near and dear to us. It's important. So,
right.
Yeah.
And the first thing we know when we plan a vacation is where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So you always begin with the end in mind. Then you start lining everything else up based on that, putting first things first. The other thing you got to know is where you are, because you got to buy tickets from where you are to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. And so what you're saying is that you got to know what you want, you know,
and be clear on it. You have to be clear as to where you want to go. So when you're planning your trip, you know you want to go to the certain state, but you also know the city. And then you pick a hotel specifically in that city where you're going to be staying for how many days, how many nights. There's all these details that we put into the whole process to get the vacation up and going and running. And then we pack, and then we got to pack based on what we're going to do when we're there. So, you know, there's all this stuff that we put into this process. But when it comes to our other projects, like people are like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh, I'll be doing something.
You know, that question has now officially been deemed invalid.
Invalid?
Invalid. And the reason why is because 2015, somebody asked you what you would be doing for 2015.
Or for 2020?
I'm sorry, 2020, yes.
Yeah, well, you couldn't. I mean, you can. Most of us are walking around talking about the future, but we don't really see the future.
That's correct. Yeah.
So you can plan for stuff, but what you plan for, if things might change before you plan it. Like,
of course, man. You gonna let me have the joke? Come on, man.
I got what you're saying. but see, the 2020 thing was predicated by 20. So if in 2015, someone would have said that 2016 would happen, then I could have been like, yep, 2020 is going to be jacked up.
Yes, this is true.
You know, for those who catch what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
You know, you like 2016, like, yeah, 2016 went down, like, yeah, well, 2020 it's not going to look that good because when you're trying to make America great again, sometimes, you know, it doesn't look the way you want it to be.
Not even a little bit. No, but the point is you have to know where you want to be, and that's kind of the thing that that I do. It's like I work backwards. Like, okay, I want to be a billionaire. Okay, well, how, this is where the end is. So work your way backwards. What needs to happen?
Like when we were in elementary school, they used to give us a piece of paper with like a maze on it. Like you had to get the mouse to the cheese.
Right.
And you had to draw a line through all this. And if you didn't make the right turn, you end up at the wall. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I thought of it, but it's like the first time they gave it to me, I'm like, well, I'm going to start with the cheese.
Yeah.
And just draw the line backwards. And then once I did, I was like, oh, that's how you solve these puzzles. Like you just start with the end. You start with the door, because it was usually sometimes like a door or whatever, get the person through. And when we look at life, though, so a lot of times people aren't looking to the end first. They're just trying to get the first step.
Yes, I agree.
They're like, what's my first step? Well, I cannot tell you the first step unless I know your objective. So with all of your projects, whether it be the podcast for the In podcast or the Misfits or the Karens, each one of those has an objective.
Right. There is an objective, and I mean they all pull into the same objective. I mean everything that I do has a component that helps the other. Just like, all right, well, you got to collect people. You need subscribers, you need followers, you need these things because the larger that part of your world, the better that is, the better you're going to be, right? I love the story of DJ Khaled, who said with using Snapchat. This is before he really blew up over the last few years, where he had a business meeting. And he said, and he went on Snapchat and told his fans that he was going to be at this corporate center at such and such, be outside in the parking lot. And then during the meeting, he opened up the curtains and showed all these people outside. And it's like, this is my power. Right. I have all these people.
Influence.
The influence, right? Mm-hmm. So everything that I do in terms of content creation, I have that in mind. It's like, because at some point in time, I'm going to be crossing most of these people over. Like, okay, now I can direct the Mixcloud crowd people to the In podcast, and the In podcast to the Karen and the Karen. So I definitely have everything worked out. One of the challenges, it's not even a challenge, but one of the things that I've learned to do in terms of prioritization, which is I thought was very important, very beneficial to me actually, is at one point in time, I didn't want to DJ anymore. I was burnt out. I was over it. I was at the end of the rope with it, my end of the rope with it. So, what I did was, the problem was that I couldn't walk away from it. Like, right. I couldn't, because every time I'm like, all right, this is the last gig that I'm going to do. Then the phone would ring and it would be someone else, and it would be a client. It's someone that I've done stuff with before. So it's like one more time. And then what was happening was, because I wasn't fully investing my time to maintain the DJ thing, like in terms of keeping up with music and practicing and the equipment, the jobs became even more difficult because I was out of my comfort zone. Like there was just no flow and whatnot. So I had to sit down with myself and really write down. I made a list of all the things that bothered me about DJing. And once I had that list, I set about figuring out which one of those things I could solve. And I actually started solving the thing. So like one of the issues I had was the actual setup. Like, okay, I need to simplify my setup so I'm not spending so much time setting up and breaking down equipment. So I made the investment in a new rigs that's a lot simpler. That took pressure away. I actually now have a couple of hours every week that I spend just on my music library, like downloading new music, organizing and getting the ID3 tags, so that now when I DJ, when I'm playing an event, it's easier for me to find music in my library because all the information is right. Because one of the problems with a lot of the record pools, and a record pool is a place where DJs go to get their music, the files they don't always have the correct information. The ID, it's called ID3 tag information, right? So it would be the artist, the name of the artist, the name of the song, if you're lucky, the year the song came out, right, the genre, all these things. So the better the that's populated, the easier it is for me to, like, if you request a certain song and I type it up, it's going to come up in my database and boom. So I spend, a couple hours once a week just organizing music, just going through my library, getting rid of duplicates, making sure I have all the information I want to have. And the result of that is now I don't hate DJing anymore, because all of those things that used to piss me off and irritate me about it, I've eliminated. And now I can just focus in on the love. In terms of editing these episodes, the video, the audio, and all that stuff, I set up templates for, like, you have a template in my computer, Jerry, for your voice profile. So like I just add it to the software, and it automatically equalizes you and does all these things and make you sound great. Right. Before every episode, I would do that by hand, and like go through. Right. So I learned how to be more efficient. So then I could focus my efforts on other things, and it's not taking me 2 hours per episode to edit. Now it's like less than an hour, because I'm just so.
What you're describing to me sounds like the Pareto principle.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Some people know it as the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
That 20% of your activity produces 80% of your results.
Okay.
And that 80% of your activity only produces 20% of your results. So people are busy but not productive.
Right, which that's exactly what I was. I was exactly that.
And now you've become productive by focusing on the things that matter, the things that actually give you a higher return on your investment, the higher return on your time, the things that are going to give you the more bang for your buck. Yes. So it's like these 4 things, or these 3 things, or this 1 or 2 things give me a higher return than all the other stuff that I could be doing. Yes. So if I organize my catalog of music, and if I get something that's going to make my setup and breakdown better, that's going to give me a much better return in terms of my results. My time is going to be better served. I'll be able to be more efficient. And it reduces all this other stuff. So it's like you can be focusing on all these other things here, like these smaller things that people do, like busy work sometimes people might call it. And it's like your payoff for those, the result, what you get back is like minimal things. Like didn't make a lot of progress. You just, if it was like, if you go back to Looney Tunes, remember Looney Tunes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With the coyote, and it's like the legs are moving, but they're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like for some of us, because they're focusing on things that don't have a high rate of return.
Right.
And then when you look at what you were doing with the editing, you're focused on the things that were going to give you a higher rate of return. And then also looking at what tools that you can use to eliminate the work. When you think about working, some people don't understand the concept of leverage.
Okay.
So how can I leverage other people's ideas? How can I leverage other people's money? How can I leverage other people's insights, or other people's efforts, or other people's tools? And when you look at how can you leverage something, it reduces your labor, reduces your work.
Right.
So it's about focusing on the things that are going to produce the higher rate return results.
Right.
So you can have 10 things on your list to get done, but out of those 10 things, if you're talking about 20%, right, out of 10, only 2 of them matter the most, and the other 8, even if you got them all done, it still wouldn't give you that much progress. This is true. And that's why when you think of the objective first, so what's the objective? And then when you think about what do I need to put first, is what's going to get me closer to the objective and the shortest amount of time, or with my effort. So if I do all these 10 things, but these 10 things here only get me 5 feet. If I did this one thing, it gets me 100 feet, right? Then we see it in sports now, even though it drives me crazy.
Oh Lord, here we go.
It's the guys, they're like so close to the basket, they could score a 2-point shot, but they pass the ball out for a 3-pointer.
You talking about Ben Simmons?
You know, I'm not saying anybody specifically. Right.
The in out game is what they're calling it now.
But they're looking at the statistics is saying, okay, well, even though I miss these shots, if I make a couple of 3-pointers, it makes up for all the other stuff. But the challenge with that is that sometimes your game is off. But for us, when it comes to our business and our lives, there are certain things that we do that just have more significance. They're more significant output if you do them. And there are other things that have a low significant output. And when we talk about evaluating, a lot of times people don't evaluate the activity to see what the output's going to be if I do that. Right.
I think more importantly, not more importantly, gosh, I'm working on what I say. I hate when people say things like when they on a lot of news will be like, they ask a question. That's a good question every time. It's like, yo, you said that every time. Like as they're
that's, you practice that.
Yeah.
So it's like it gives you a chance to create the space. Let me think about the question.
Right. I don't want to do that. I want to be quicker. No. So I think the first thing is, we'll go back to it, the knowing where you want to be. Like what's the goal, right? And then being smart enough to understand that in all your activities, what's going to get you closer, faster to that goal. So, for example, and we started out with the example of me wanting to dunk the basketball and the workouts, right? It doesn't make sense for me to stay on the bench and bench all the time if I need to get my legs, stronger, right? Or it doesn't make sense for me to not jump or to spend time boxing, like working on the heavy bag and speed bag when I need to be working on my foot speed and all those good things. So if you're out there and you're like, feel like you're spinning your wheels, you really do have to start with the idea that you have a firm understanding of where you're trying to go. If you want to be, and it's funny because I've talked to so many people like that they'll be like, they want to be a nurse, for example. But right now they're learning how to day trade so that they can make money day trading. So then they'll have more money to pay for school. And then so they have it. It's like they're building the better mousetrap. And I'm like, well, why don't you just go to school? Like, because like the time that you're taking to learn how to day trade is time that you could have spent just going to school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. They're looking at how to create money to pay for school.
Right.
And there could be another way to pay for school that they didn't focus on that will allow them to spend more time actually doing school to get them to be a nurse faster.
Right. Because it's like, well, so how long is it going to take you to learn how to day trade? Oh, the program's 9 months. It's like, well, damn, that's 9 months. And it's actually cost them money to learn how to day trade, where it's just like, well, why didn't you just take that money and put it towards
versus
school?
Like we're taking that day trading time to see, are there any funding resources out there that are looking for people that I can fit into a category, whatever group that I can fall into that allow people to go back into nursing, or programs that they're giving scholarships for, grants for,
all those things, all those things.
Right.
So
I get it.
We did, and I mean, I've been guilty of that in the past. And
it sounds good. So one of the things I had to learn, and this is a guy that I met. He was a very successful speaker, lives in Las Vegas, and he said there's I think it was 4 words or 5 words that will make you broke. It's because I like it. Right, because I like it, because I like it. Yeah, so it's 4 words, right?
Right.
So a lot of people are doing stuff because it sounds good. And it's like, well, I like this path.
Right.
Okay, great. So you like that path, but that path might not be the path to get you there. Alice in Wonderland, when she was at the fork in the road or the split, the cat was in a tree. Like, well, where should I go, the left or the right? And he's like, well, where do you want to go? It's like, I don't know. Well, any road would take you there.
Oh, hold on. That was slick. You be pulling these quotes and examples out of your ass. I love it.
Any road will take you there. So if you don't know what you want specifically, then it's easy to pick the wrong road, and it's easy to get distracted, and it's easy to get off course, and it's easy to become disenfranchised because it doesn't look like you're making any progress because you picked the wrong exit.
Right. So let's talk about real quick figuring out what it is that one should do. I've always believe that if it's something that you would do for free, then that's what you should be doing that's the career that you should be chasing. If you're willing to do it for free, then you need to do it until you can figure out how to get paid for it. How do you feel about that position?
I mean, that's I think it was Confucius that says if you find something you love, you never have to work another day in your life, right?
Yes.
So that's where that comes from, that same vein. But the reality is everyone's situation is different. So some of us, when I first started in business, I wasn't married and I didn't have any children, which gave me freedom to make decisions because it was only me. Some people are different situations. They have a family. It could be a single parent, or it could be they're two parents, but they have like kids they got to take care of or something like that. So your choices, you have to be more strategic in your choices. So you may have to sacrifice some little bit of enjoyment or happiness for a temporary perspective to get what you need done, to make sure the priorities are taken care of, right? I think the question that people want to look at is if they know when they have an inkling of what they want, to be crystal clear as to what it looks like.
Okay.
We see these, as when we were growing up, they would have these movies or TV shows where someone would find a magic lamp. And they'd rub the lamp, and we always knew what was going to happen. The genie would be tricking them, right? The genie would trick them. They would ask for something, but it was always one thing they left out,
right?
And they'd be like, "Oh, you didn't get what you wanted because it was well, you didn't say that
specific, right? Yes."
So a lot of people say they want this, but they're not really clear on what this looks like to the detail. But when you think about their vacation, flip it back to the vacation. The whole thing is laid out. People know exactly what they're going to do every day.
Right.
They map the whole thing out. Some people got the thing planned out to the hour, to the minute, to the second, because they only got a short period of time. I only got 7 days.
So you gotta make it work. Well, it's an example of asking the genie of something and getting tricked is asking for, I want $1 million, and then you get the $1 million, but it's because your parents were killed and there was a life insurance policy, right? So then the way to ask for $1 million is I want to win I want $1 million from winning the lottery, and I'm gonna buy the ticket. That would you. So it's about being as specific as you possibly can be about your dream and what you want.
The best example of that was a movie, and I'm not saying it was the best movie out there, but it was a movie with Brendan Fraser called Bedazzled.
Okay.
And everything that he asked for, it was something that was jacked up. It was one detail he didn't account for every time he got the wish that he was looking for. It was one detail that he didn't account for, and it was you got me again. So it was just it's a comedy, it's a funny movie about that whole situation. So, and the reason why I bring this up and stress it is because prioritizing is going to be difficult to do if you're not really sure exactly what you want and you're not really clear on what you want.
Right.
So it's going to be difficult to say what's the 20%. What are the 20% activities that are going to produce the higher rate of return? The movie Selma came out probably 6 years ago or something like that.
Around that time, I believe.
Yeah. And there was a part in the movie where I thought was really fascinating, where they were in the person's house and they were deciding what they were going to focus on in terms of their agenda. That we want the vote. We want to get this voting rights bill passed, but here are all these things around it that are an issue. So, which one of these issues though are we going to look at first? And everyone had an opinion, and they were all talking about what they wanted, and they had to narrow it down. And they finally realized, this one issue, if we don't do this, all the other issues don't even matter.
Right.
Right. So they had to figure out what was the one thing. Is it the poll tax? Is it this? Is it this? And it was interesting to me because a lot of times when we look at the things that were accomplished in life, history, other people's lives, we trivialize the details.
Right. The devil's in the details, for real, for
Right?
real.
We trivialize it. We're like, yo, Martin Luther King one day gave a speech and then, then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
No, man, it was like there was strategy. These people were strategic. They planned this stuff out. It wasn't, people just didn't start walking.
Right.
Like they had a very strategic plan that they can to put into practice on a consistent basis over a period of time in order to get the results. It didn't just instantaneously happen because someone said da 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 da. Rosa Parks it wasn't like she was just impromptu. There was people were plotting this. She wasn't even the first person to do it.
Right.
They were looking for test cases. The NAACP was looking for test cases, and she was one of the better test cases because she was married and had a better reputation than some other people who had done it in the past. Right.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times when we simplify what happens for people, it makes it feel like it was easier, or there wasn't a lot of stuff that they put in it. There's always going to be there's always going to be work, right?
Yes.
And it's going to be detailed plans and actions to get to where you want. It's not as just simple as saying, I want this. It's always knowing what activities, because the reality is we all have limited time.
Right. Resources are always limited. And I mean, with you saying that, it made me just think about Michael Jordan and him talking about how he, it's like you got to master dribbling, dribbling, like just standing in place before you get started with dribbling and walking, and then dribbling with running, and then, all these things. It's these innocuous things that are annoying that's where the greatness happens. That's where success, those are the things that will make you successful. Like one of the things I like to do when I play basketball, I get there earlier before people are there, and I'll stand in front of the rim and just flip the ball up into the basket, like just to work on the rotation and whatnot, to get those mechanics down, so that when I'm playing, that mechanic is solid. Like that, the motion of shooting is solid. It's bulletproof, and if I miss, it's not because my mechanics were off. So a lot of people do skip over those innocuous things, the things that aren't sexy. It's fun to get on the turntables and cut and scratch and mix and blend, but it's not fun to sit in front of my laptop and go through my library and make sure that the artist's first and last name or whatever is in place, and that, okay, there's no year attached to this song, so let me go Google this song to see what year it was released so I can add it in. Those are the details that ultimately will make me a better DJ, but they're not fun to do in the when I want to be just practicing, when I just want to be playing music. But
the stuff that gives us the higher output is typically the stuff that people don't like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It requires, like, the easier things, the easier tasks are the ones that have a low rate of return. It's, the easy stuff. The difficult stuff, the challenging stuff, the stuff that requires more energy, it requires more of us, put more strain on our abilities. Those are the things that are going to have the higher rate. So if I'm going to give a presentation, and sometimes I don't get months or weeks or whatever to prepare for something. So I got to think about, what do I want people to walk away with? What are 3 points I want them to walk away with? Or 3 ideas I want them to take away? And, I could spend all day on a PowerPoint or, present, like you can build slides to, all day long, but then it doesn't matter what slides you have if you don't have an idea of what are the key points in your presentation that you want to give people.
Right. Right.
So it's like all the stuff that we do, everything that we do, everything has a couple, what's the word I was looking for? It's fulcrum points, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all of them have like a point. It's like, if I do this, it all flips.
Right.
If I do this, it all flips. Well, I could be like pushing this other stuff, and nothing's going to move. If I do this one thing, it all flips. And the other stuff, I can get to later. Like some things you can get to later when you have more time, because they don't give you the same impact as these key components, these key things.
Right. Okay. So you're a person, and I'm talking to you, audience, right? You're someone out there who you have a goal in mind, but you have a busy life, right? Like you want to start a business, right? You have a family, you have kids, you have a wife or a husband, you have a partner. I say I'm trying to be better. You have a partner and you have children, right? And you have a job that you got to pay your bills. You only have a little bit of time every week to put towards this business venture. And so you're wondering what do you do? How do you spend that time? Where do you start? Like what's the first thing that you start out with? Like Jerry's like, what?
Are you asking me?
Well, now I'm going to ask you.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Now I'm asking you, where would you tell them to begin with, or how would they sort their time out?
Well, it depends on where they are in their business. But the first thing is, what problem do you solve?
Right. So let's say they're at they've decided that they want to start a food truck.
Okay.
Right. They've just made their first decision. Right. So now, and they have approximately 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week to devote towards this business, to getting started, figuring it out.
Well, before I'd even go get the food truck, is I would make sure my food is good.
Okay.
Right. I would sell some plates.
Okay.
So I watch Shark Tank a lot. And what I find so fascinating, a lot of reality, when I say reality TV, I watch the reality TV where it's like a game like Survivor, or Shark Tank or something. Like there's a strategy to it, right?
Right.
So it's always shocking to me when people come on there and it's like they've never watched the show.
Right. No preparation.
Yeah, because the question I was going to ask you, what are your numbers? Mm-hmm. So if you went on Shark Tank and you were going to ask them for an investment into food trucks, because that was going to be your strategy, is a food truck was your distribution source. Well, the one thing they'd want to know is, what are your numbers? What are your sales like? So if you could prove to them that people want to buy your food, that you set up a booth somewhere, a kiosk, or you positioned yourself someplace and you sold your plates and cats were coming in and everybody was buying you up, then it would make sense. Well, okay, great. Well, then if I get a food truck and I set up here, 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 and here, it only multiplies out by these numbers.
Right.
So the first thing, if you're going to want to create a food truck situation, is do people like your food? Are they going to be willing to line up to go buy it? And you can test that out before you even invest money in a food truck.
Okay. All right.
So get sales.
So in that case, I think I would like to drill that down to an ideology that's more, that could be, anybody can apply. They can apply in their unique situation. You focus on the thing that's going to get you to the next step. That's key. Like that's pretty, I mean, it sounds pretty basic, but a lot of people skip past it. Like, so for example, when it's time, when I hit stop on all these devices, right? It doesn't make sense for me just to try to edit this footage on the devices, which I actually could, right? Set up for it. But it's better for me to transfer all this content to my computer and put it in the proper folders in the proper areas, so that then the next step would be, then I could actually begin the editing process. And then I don't worry about anything else. Like, I'm not worrying about writing the synopsis or the hashtags or anything like that until everything is edited up and finalized in that version, and it's ready to actually go up on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and Google and all those places, right? So it's one step after the next. Before I learned to be disciplined like that, as I'm transferring stuff, I'm thinking about the synopsis and I'm thinking about the next episode, and I'm over here and why I'm all over the place instead of focusing on the task at hand. And even though I was getting this stuff done, it wasn't happening as smoothly as it should have, and as quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I call that a concentration of effort.
Yes.
And it's basically the concept of multitasking versus not multitasking. And my idea is that multitasking, the way it's taught, doesn't necessarily work the way we think it should. Like, when you think about the concentration of effort, so the sun, when you go outside, the sun is shining everywhere, right? That's multitasking. right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see a fire just popping up everywhere. But when you take the sunlight and you focus it through a lens,
Magnifying glass, yes.
you're concentrating the effort of the sun in one spot, a fire starts. So when we take our effort and focus it in on one thing, stuff gets done faster.
Yes, it does.
And then you move to the next thing, move to the next thing, move to the next thing. When you're trying to do a whole bunch of things at once, you're spreading yourself out and you're not making the progress that you really want. So I believe in concentration effort, where I basically focus all my attention on one thing until that is done, which is why it's so important to prioritize your things.
Right.
To know which activity. And when you think about to make this practical for people, when you look at prioritizing, is what task is going to give you the highest return on your time. So what task is more important in terms of the overall process than another? How challenging is the task, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, are other people depending upon that task?
Right. Or
right.
other processes.
Right.
Other processes.
Depending on that task, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at these three, those are just three. You could have more factors, just three. And you rate the task based on those three. Like you give it numbers, 1 through 10, 10 being the highest. And you rate the stuff. And you can add up the numbers to see which tasks are more important than other tasks. Because it's key to know the impact, who's involved or what's involved, and the challenge. Because sometimes people like to put stuff in time periods of their life where they don't have their high energy. Like I know there's certain parts of the day I am more productive than others.
Right.
So I need to put the stuff that require higher energy in those times.
Yes. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to be like, it's going to be an energy drain when you do it. So you don't want to put it in a time where you have little energy. So these are just things you need to factor in to help you make progress, and also understand what progress is. Like sometimes people look at success and they don't look at success as progress.
Yeah, they look at it as a destination, not part of the journey.
Right. So success is consistent progress over time. Mm-hmm. So if you're making incremental steps forward, that is success. You know, when you watch football is a series of downs in yards. So if you are getting 4 yards here, 4 yards here, 4 yards here, eventually you're going to get a first down, and eventually you'll end up with a touchdown.
It all adds up. It really all adds up.
And so looking at progress, forward progress, I was reflecting on Luke Cage a couple nights ago, because one of the quotes from Luke Cage was always forward, forward, always. And I was talking to because we saw one of the actors in a different show, and I was like, yeah, and he was in Luke Cage. I was telling my daughter, he was in Luke Cage, and he always just say, always forward, forward, always. So that's the key. Like we just want to keep moving forward, keep making forward progress.
Yeah. I think, as you were speaking in my mind, the wheels in my head are turning, and, just really, I really want to make sure that the audience or listeners or viewers can really walk away with a good takeaway from this. I think it's important. No, I know it's important. So if you have a bunch of tasks at hand and you're not sure where to start or how to start, sit down and figure out the dependencies. Right. So with step one, like if you don't take step one, if you don't do well with step one, how is that going to affect steps down the line? It might not affect step 2 or step 3, but step 4 and 5 might be really messed up if you don't get a strong step 1. So figure out what is dependent on what, and whatever has the original dependent, like, will help with all the other dependencies. That's where you need to start out with. Like, it's almost like if, people will save up for rims for a car that they don't have, or the car needs engine work, but they rather spend it on a paint job or something like that. Like, okay, the car will look nice, but now it doesn't run. Or, you bought a piece of shit car, but you put nice rims on it. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the approach you take is like, okay, so what is the most important thing to get me to that end goal that you figured out that you wanted to be the very beginning? And then, figure out what's dependent upon this, that, and the other, and then focus on those things.
Right. And I think to add on to what you said, when it comes to being dependent, is also know you can be dependent on people for help.
Yes.
Like some of the things that we want to do, someone else has already done them. So just like when you're planning your vacation, people go talk to a travel agent to help them plan it, right?
Yes.
So you can get a success agent, someone who's been a nurse or someone who's had a food truck or someone who's been down this road to help you understand what steps are more important than others.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. So I was recently having a conversation with someone probably a week and a half ago, and they were studying for a test, and it was like information overload, but they were talking to someone who had already taken the test, and they were telling them specifically what parts were more important to focus on than others. Like, yeah, all this information you got is cool, but this is on the test. That's on the test. That's on the test. That's on the test. So you could study all of it, but all of it isn't really going to be on the test.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's certain things that you may not know because you haven't been through the whole journey, that someone who's been through that journey, who's been to the destination, can tell you these are the parts that are really important and the other parts are just nice to have.
Facts. So you're drawing on the experience of others. That's it.
Wise people learn from the experiences of other people. Smart people learn from their own experience. So the choice is wisdom over everything.
That's beautiful.
Wisdom is the principal thing.
That's a beautiful thing. It's hard. It's hard. It can be hard at times. It'll be hard in the very beginning as you're learning the discipline of learning how to prioritize what to do, when to do it. It can be very hard. But once you get a strong sense of where you want to go, what direction you want to take. So, if you want to be a nurse, or if you want to have a food truck, or you want to be whatever it is you want to do, first of all, you're not the first person to ever have done it. So to Jerry's point, looking at the experience of others and seeing what they did in order to get to where where you want to be, right? The other side of it, the other part of this is learning how to be disciplined enough to do the shit that isn't sexy, right? The day in, the day out, if you ever learn to play an instrument, what the first thing you do is scales. One note after the next, after the next, after the next, and you do it over and over and over again. It's boring, right? But the act of hitting those scales helps you with your timing, understanding what that note sounds like, how it should sound, and how, on a deeper level, how those sounds complement one another. So, but a lot of people, I remember when I took piano lessons as a little guy, I hated doing the scales. I hated practicing, but that is the mundane stuff that actually is the foundation to how you become a great pianist or whatever you want to do. So that should be the priority. Usually if it's something you don't want to do, that's what you should be doing in order to get to get good.
Yep. Yeah. You tied a bow on it. You put a little bow, tied a knot on it.
There we go. So this is what I'm gonna do. Yeah. Put the music on. So
they say little hinges swing big doors.
Is that sounds like the name of an adult movie.
I'm not even gonna go there.
At least once I gotta make you uncomfortable. Yeah. Just a little bit.
I'm comfortable. I'm just not watching it.
Anyway, listen, guys, we really appreciate you joining us for another episode of the End Podcast. Make sure you are sharing this experience with your other people, sharing the love. It is definitely appreciated. Jerry, what do you have to say if I'm closing out on this?
All I have to say is be patient with the process. Okay. That's the key. Be patient with the process. I know sometimes we want instant microwave results, but stuff out the microwave doesn't taste as good as that slow cooked meal your grandma used to make.
This is true. And I always say it's important to fall in love with the process, because if you fall in love with the process and doing those mundane things, you're tricking yourself, that makes it more tolerable to do it. But you know, the journey is really where it's at. That's where the fun is. When you look back, like when you get to the destination, it's very good, it's exhilarating, yada yada yada. But like when you reflect back on your history, you're not going to be just remembering the final feeling of getting what you wanted. You're actually going to romanticize about all the struggle and everything that went wrong and those experiences. So embrace that, enjoy that. Jerry, how are they going to get a hold of you, and why would they get a hold of you?
They can follow me anywhere on social media at jerrypoe.com. My website is also jerrypoe.com. So for those who are struggling with their business in terms of their revenue strategies or strategic planning, just reach out. I specialize in sales. Rejection therapy is one of my specialties. So if you're having any challenge with your sales process, I am the guy you want to talk to.
And what are the coordinates?
jerrypoe.com, and anywhere on social media, Jerry at jerrypoe.
That's it. Very clean, very clean. You can get at me at djsilk on Instagram, Twitter. Really, it's just Instagram. And hey, you go to Instagram, go to at djsilk. You will click on that link in the bio, and you will see. Well, there's also the End Podcast on Instagram at the End Podcast. I believe that's what it is.
Yep.
But there's also links to my Mixcloud page, my Medium page, the other podcasts that I'm doing, and anything else that may come up down the pike. So please don't be shy. The mixes are a lot of fun. I am back to doing new mixes, so I've been talking about that. Like, I'm gonna do more. I'm finally at it. I'm back into the flow. I got my rhythm back. So also, if you are interested in having a podcast of your own, or maybe you need just studio to record something, like a podcast or whatever, reach out to me. If you live in the tri-state area, to me, which is Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, we can make it work. So don't be afraid to reach out. On that note, I am DJ Silk, and he is
Jerry Franklin Poe.
And this is the End Podcast. Until the next time, you guys be safe, be well, and do something kind for somebody just because you can. All right. We are out of here. Peace.